be your moderator today. Before we begin, let's have an invocation given by George Shahade, and then we will follow me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, which is behind me. George.
Let's stand, please. Lord, your word says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." Help us, Lord, to be a nation who reveres and trusts in you. Help us to always seek you for wisdom and guidance. Lord, we are ever so mindful of the ultimate sacrifices and devotion made by our men and women in uniform all over the world. Help us never to take that for granted. Protect and guide them always. We thank you for organizations like Veterans in Politics that champion and defend the veteran interests in our political arena and in our community. We ask, Lord, for your blessings on today's interviews. We thank you for the candidates that have taken from their time to be here and participate. We ask you to give them a wise mind and a caring heart to make a difference in their campaigns, and that you would put the right people in these offices. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Remove cover, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Grateful for the opportunity, Veterans in Politics, to be here today, to be your moderator. We need to thank certainly Rhythm Kitchen for letting us use the facility. Sponsors Real Water, and Real Water is made right here in Las Vegas, for those of you that did not know that. And also Andre Logo Marciano, who is not, I don't believe he's here today, but he's also a sponsor of this event. With us, our panel members, Laurel Fee. Laurel, and each of you just kind of raise your hands so that the candidates know who you are. Robert Luke, Judge Luke, Martin Melendrez, Dr. Richard Hawkins, there he is, Karen Steelman, Karen's over there in the booth, Jason Brooks, Jason's ditching, okay, Jason. Tom Blanchard, I know Tom's here, April Meneres, did I get that right, April?
No.
Okay, would you help me?
Minhares.
Minhares, I will learn that. Okay.
You gotta roll the R.
Minhares, okay. Danielle Dupre,
Yep,
did I say that right?
just about.
Close enough. Okay, just so you know, Laurel Fee is a journalist. Judge Luke, of course, former district court judge. Martin Melendrez is an attorney. Dr. Hawkins is an attorney. Karen is a Veterans in Politics auxiliary director. Michael Lamb, United States Marine Corps. Did I miss anybody? Jim Jonas, I didn't get you, Jim. Jim Jonas, and you're?
I'm Jim Jonas. I'm the co-host for Veterans in Politics.
And he's awesome. Tom Blanchard, president for Veterans Association of Real Estate Las Vegas, and April is the public information officer for the Las Vegas Tea Party, and Danielle is a doctor, PhD. So welcome, panelists. Thank you very much for your sacrifice on this Saturday to spend time with these wonderful candidates for judge. Candidates will be allowed 1.5 minutes to introduce themselves. Panel members are restricted to 30 seconds to pose a question. Candidates are allowed 1 minute to answer. Panel members are allowed one question. The question may be to one candidate, or the same question can be posed to all candidates if it is a yes or no response. Do you have a copy of this? This is not a forum to air personal grievances. Panel members, please keep your questions generic. Candidates, do not mention other candidates in your responses. I think it's pretty cut and dry. I've had the opportunity to serve as moderator for Veterans in Politics before during other elections. So if you get too far off course, I'll throw something at you. Again, I have asked several of you as panelists to forgive my unprofessionalism, because I am not a professional moderator. Keep that in mind as we go through this. That being said, our current list of candidates before us: John Hall, Jack Howard Jr. Jack, raise your hand, say hello to everybody.
Hey.
Lynn Hughes. Marsha Kimble-Simms is not with us yet. Michele Mercer, she is here with us, and Rebecca Burton, so she is here as well. Let's begin. Now, you're going to help me a little bit on the clock?
Yes, sir.
All right.
May I ask a question, Ms. Ross?
Please. And yeah, any questions before we get started?
Is this going to be a full 30 minutes or 45? Just curious.
I am showing 45 minutes,
Okay, thank you.
if I'm correct. from any of my leaders in the back telling me what to do. Yeah, 45 minutes. So we have plenty of time to ask a lot of questions and plenty of time for your responses. Try to limit them to 1.5 minutes. Again, panel members, 30 seconds on your questions. Let us begin. First question for our candidates.
Allow them to introduce
Pardon me?
themselves first.
Oh, the bio.
Introductions.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Sorry, candidates. Who are you? Yeah, I'm not a professional moderator. Rebecca, please go first. And this portion is 1 minute.
Good morning, I'm Rebecca Burton. I'm running for Family Court in Department C. I believe that our Nevada families deserve to have intelligence, experience, and skill on the Family Court bench, and I believe that I have those qualities that the Family Court needs. For over 21 years, I've practiced exclusively in the field of family law. I'm certified as a family law specialist. There's only 32 of us in the entire state of Nevada. It's a distinction that's very difficult to obtain because one needs to pass a mini bar exam by 85%, consisting of complex questions of family law and ethics. One needs to have certain length of practice. At least 75% family law in my practice has been 100%. One has to be recommended by peers and as well as family law judges, and one has to have 18 continuing legal education credits each and every year, and I not only do that but exceed that every year. I'm very much involved in family law, have been for my entire 21 years. I've been on the Executive Council of Family Law Section, serving for the entire 8 years allowed to do so. I've served as an officer for 5 of them. I have been granted or appointed by the Nevada Supreme Court as a mentor to new attorneys interested in family law. I've also been, I've mentored law students from the Boyd School of Law. I've served on numerous committees, outsourced mediation committee currently, as well as the child interview committee for family
Ms.
court.
Burton, that is your time. Mr. Howard.
Good morning. My name is Jack Howard. My family and I have a history of service to our country. This is my picture when I was in the Army Reserve. My father was a first lieutenant, and he won the Silver Star. I have him with me. In 2010, I showed them as well. I brought an article, and I'm not going to read it to you, not an article, a letter he wrote to his mother during the Battle of Anzio. There were 150 allies involved in that, with 43,000 casualties. My Uncle Bob was a staff sergeant, served in the Pacific. His last combat duty was in Okinawa. My Uncle Damon served in the Army Air Force training pilots for the eventual attack on Japan. I'm engaged. My fiance's sister is a surgical nurse currently in Afghanistan. I'm very proud to be a veteran, and I support veteran issues. One of the things that judges need to know is that veterans...
Mr. Howard, that is your time, and I apologize to you as candidates if I cut you off too soon, but I was remiss. It is 1.5 minutes that you have to introduce yourselves. We'll recognize Marsha Kimble-Simms as joining us, and I believe, Mr. Hughes, it's your turn to introduce yourself.
My name is Lynn Hughes, and I grew up here in Las Vegas. This is basically my hometown. We moved here when I was very young, so this is what I remember growing up to the local school system, through UNLV. The only one I missed was law school. I had to go away to law school, and I didn't have it done by the time I graduated. I have been an attorney here for almost 17 years. I have had my own practice since 2006, focusing on family law and probates and estates. I have also been a pro tem judge or substitute judge in the Clark County system of the city justice court and the family court, going over 12 years now. I have a lot of experience in acting as a judge, substituting when they are unable to serve, and I really enjoy it. It has been a great experience to make those decisions and hopefully help those individuals in their cases. My father is a Marine. was a Marine, although I don't think he ever really let go of that. He was a Marine that got hit and used that to get through school, and he went to BYU to become a pharmacist, and has revealed me the stories of Japan and his service there. I look forward to serving this county and the people in it, and that's what I don't have.
Perfect timing, Mr. Hughes. Thank you very much. And Ms. Simms, your turn.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Marsha Kimble-Simms, and I practice family law, criminal law, as well as probate. I've been actively involved in foster care and adoption for the past 17 years, as well as kinship care. Myself and the National Foster Parent Association, as well as our Law Foundation, created a manual to help improper individuals who are in the court system understand the family law system. 60% of all litigants in the family law system try to do it themselves because they cannot afford an attorney. The manual in question that I spoke of assists them with this process. I am also a veteran. I was in the 109th Judge Advocate General. My brother served 20 years in the military, Army, Air Force, Joint Operation, Okinawa, Japan. My aunt and my uncle both served in the Air Force. I believe that I'm the best candidate because I believe that families are forever, that husband and wives, as well as their children, even though the relationships don't work out between the mother and the father, both should remain active, involved in the child's life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Mercer.
Good morning, my name is Michele Mercer, and it is my goal to earn your vote for District Court, Family Court, Department C. I have been practicing family law for over 10 years, and I have been a practicing attorney for almost 16 years. I am married. I've been married to a Las Vegas Metro police officer for almost 17 years. We have 2 beautiful children, a 16-year-old daughter. She attends Centennial High School, and my son is an 8th grader, 13, at magnet school here in town, Jim Bridger Academy. I'm very involved in their activities as well as the family court. I was appointed in 2009 by the panel of family court judges to serve as a part-time hearing master, and in my capacity as a substitute judge, I have conducted approximately 2,000 hearings. I didn't start counting them until probably 2011 though, and I serve in many different areas, and I am very honored to serve on the bench and serve the families and the community. I serve primarily in the areas of abuse and neglect, when the parents have to come to court because their children have been removed from them, as well as
Ms. Mercer,
mental health.
thank you very much for your introduction. To all of you, we have some great candidates. I neglected to mention also that thank you for that. Department C is who these candidates and what office these candidates are running for. That being said, we'll open up the panel members, 30 seconds to pose a question. Candidates, again, I remind you, you have 1 minute to answer. Panel members are allowed 1 question. The question may be one candidate, or maybe the same question posed to all candidates with a yes or no response. This is not a forum to air personal grievances. Panel members, please keep your questions generic. And candidates, do not mention other candidates in your responses. I open it up to the panel.
Before we actually answer any questions, I think something we should mention to the candidates. This is Veterans in Politics. Obviously, has a very big interest in Veterans Affairs, but as you like the balance of the committee, that's not the deciding factor here. It's a heavy factor in our deliberations, but we're really looking for the best candidate.
Doctor, thank you very much. With that, would you like to ask the first question? Okay, Mr. Jonas.
He got his 30 seconds.
Okay, my first question and only question would be to John Howard Jr. Thank you very much for your service and your passion towards veterans. Some of the other candidates brought up a little more, they've been more experience on the bench. So what specifically makes you qualified to sit on the bench? Just what Dr. Howard just said, as far as veterans, it's not the only issue. So what exact experience do you have to make us think that you would be a good judge, not just specifically toward veterans issues?
That's your time. It's going to be difficult for Mr. Jonas, who's a radio personality, asking the question 30 seconds. Is impossible.
Guilty as charged.
That's your question, Mr. Howard.
Sir, I believe if the panel members don't have it, I have extra resumes. I'm the only candidate that literally has served in every division of family court. I've been approved in juvenile, child support enforcement, TPO court, guardianship, and probate. I don't believe any other candidate has that background. I've been, as well as Rebecca, on the State Family Law Council. I served for 8 years until I turned out. That was an excellent experience. I can tell you, I guess part of being old is been there, done that, seen that. I probably have more jury trials and appeals, and as an arbitrator heard and decided more cases. As a judge, I also serve in Boulder City Criminal Court. So,
That's your time, Mr. Howard.
thank you.
Next question, panelists, please.
I'd also like to remind everybody that this is being recorded, so don't be afraid of microphones.
And I think it's in the best interest of time and me trying to keep track of the clock and all that, that your questions are direct and your answers are direct as candidates as well. I don't mean to be rude, but if I'm going to be held to this standard, I think that's probably
Just
the best.
go around from the beginning to the end.
Okay,
Start with April and just go around.
Ms. Menyes, did I say it right?
No, but that's okay.
Yes, I'll get it. Go ahead.
Is this on?
Here.
All right, so this is directed towards Michele Mercer. Would you favor or oppose a system in which all sentencing decisions or orders were routinely reported in a local newspapers indexed by the name of the judge?
All routinely?
That all decisions would be indexed, say in newspapers or something public where the people can go see what your decisions are,
You're not just talking about criminally?
just overall.
Well, that would be fine.
Okay.
We have to be held accountable.
Ms. Bean?
Okay, I want to address my question to Rebecca Burton. In the adoption and foster parents, if you continually came up against a law or a rule you were to follow in doing the best, that what's in the best interest of the child or speedy placement, would you ignore that law, follow that law, or try to change it?
Well, I couldn't ignore any law because my obligation as a judge would certainly be to uphold any law that is currently in place. One of the areas that I do not or would not be able to serve on is the abuse and neglect court because my husband is a senior deputy district attorney in abuse and neglect. So to avoid any kind of conflict, I would not be seated in that particular seat.
Thank you. Dr. Richards?
This is for that.
Will you turn this off now? Just push your.
And hold the mic close to your mouth. please.
It's on.
This is for Ms. Kimble-Simms. In a previous judicial election, the Standing Committee on Ethics and Election took exception with your behavior. Given that background, how should we be concerned or should we not be concerned about your willingness to follow the rules as you're in a position to have others? You must decide whether they have or not.
The issue, and if you look at my cards, from what my understanding of the rules, just like when you serve in the military, you say I was a member of the military, or I was in the Army Reserve. I was told no matter what your past experience, and this was not in the rule, that you have to use former. So from now on, irrespective of what my background training is, I have to use the word former. So say for instance you told people you were a doctor and you retired from it, and you used the fact that you were a doctor, based upon the ruling from the Ethics Commission, you would have violated an ethical rule by not saying you were a former doctor. And that's what happened to me.
Very good, thank you. I gotta reach.
That's all right.
Mic. And just speak closely into the microphone, please.
This is for all the candidates. Judges have a lot of discretion. Could you please define what the best interest of children means to you? Starting with Rebecca.
Well, we actually have a statutory scheme that says all of the kinds of factors that the court shall look at, as well as anything else the court may want to consider with regard to the best interests of the children. I think that best interest of the child starts with having two healthy parents that are both actively involved in their lives to the best of their ability. I believe that children do best when they have a large support system, and so we try to make sure that we can have we try to make sure that the parents are good parents, actively cooperating with each other, and that certainly serves best interest of the parents as having both, or best interest, the children having both of their parents involved.
Mr. Howard, same question.
I'm going to do it in another sense. I agree with Rebecca. What I tell people is parents have choices, children have no choices. If a parent engages in behavior or the use of drugs or abusive behavior, the family courts need to jump all over that. I'm a huge fan of adoption. I was a foster parent of 2 children. I know foster care. Children have a right to love and permanency. And if the parents don't step up, they need to step up. And the courts need to do it quicker than later.
Thank you. And Mr. Hughes, same question.
I think the best interest of the children is statutorily is the paramount thing for the judge to be concerned with. Their safety, their health, their education, preventing harm to them is obviously the first major factors that have to be considered. The parties in these cases often have different views as to what is the best interest of the child. They each want to say that they are going to be serving in the best interest, and it's up to the judge to sift through the myriad of facts and allegations that are made to boil down to the facts that are going to place that child in the safest, best position to have that child grow and be kept safe.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Ms. Kimble-Simms.
I would agree with Lynn Hughes as well. Usually you have reports from social workers, you have information about the families, and you review that information and you decide what really is in the best interest of the child. I can say, based upon my experience and being in court often with foster children, a lot of their birth parents suffer from different drug issues or alcohol issues. A lot of times it is better to place them in foster care, but also it is better to try and put them in family care as well, which is called kinship care, to look to a family member so that when they age out of the foster care system, it is in their best interest to have someone that can provide a support system instead of allowing them to age out and they have no one. And what has happened is a lot of our foster children end up homeless.
Thank you. Ms. Mercer, same question.
The best interest of the children is the foundation upon which the judges have their decision-making. And many, many factors should be taken into consideration when determining the best interest of the children. I think one key factor that is maybe overlooked or isn't focused as much as I think could be, should be maybe, is the voice of the children as well in determining the best interest factor. It shouldn't necessarily be the deciding factor. It should just be a factor. For example, some children might say that they want to stay with dad because there's no rules. and, or, you know, maybe because there are more rules, he's the better disciplinarian and rather than mom. And those kinds of things, they can provide you a lot of insight into the family. I think children definitely need to be respected more, but many different factors, but it's not about the parents, it's not about what the parents are entitled to.
Thank you, Ms. Mercer.
Thank you.
Judge Luke, you have the next question.
Are we on here? Okay. Just for the benefit of the candidates here, I know most of you, and I will not be voting in the endorsement process, nor will I be involved in the discussions because I have a lot of personal friendships up here. However, I'm going to pose this question for everybody on the panel. We do know that the number of judges we have in our courts are limited, but we cannot constitutionally limit the number of people who file lawsuits in our courts. And that just goes up and up as people do that. And with the number of pro se litigants we have, which I believe is around 60%, what programs or structural changes to family court would you suggest so that we could both A, meet increased caseloads, and B, keep the cost of going through the system reasonable for the litigants in court?
Ms. Burton, you take the first question, please.
Mediation, I think that's one of the most important means of being able to move a volume of cases through the system. Most of the time, people are representing themselves, not always, but they're usually when they're representing themselves without an attorney, it's because they don't have a lot of assets, they don't have money to pay for an attorney. So a lot of times their issues are not overly complex. I'm on the outsourced mediation committee. We have a board that has certified a number of individuals who are very good with mediation. We have the Boyd Law School has students who are mediators. We've also, at some point on and off, we've discussed having like night court sometimes, but that poses different financial issues for the court because you have to pay for the staff. But certainly, yes, I know that there's a large volume of pro per litigants that need to be moved through the system, and mediation is the best way to get that happening.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Howard, same question.
Judge, you and I are both certified collaborative divorce specialists. I agree with the concept. Sadly, it has never come to pass full bore in Nevada. We have an increasingly large caseload and increasing demands. We have far fewer judges in Clark County per population than, for example, Reno. In Reno, they decide motions without hearing, without the litigants being able to appear. People have a right to a voice in what happens to their case. I would concur with Rebecca. We need to put a lot more emphasis on mediation, but I think we ought to notch it up a level. I think we ought to really use the arbitration guidelines. That gives people a voice and gets cases finalized.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Thank you, Mr. Howard. Mr. Hughes, same question.
The time frame involved in these cases is not astronomical, but it's extended, and especially in cases where the pro per litigants come in representing themselves, they have the problem of not understanding how the procedures work in family court. They see the Judge Judy cases and they expect that's how a divorce is going to be handled. And it's not a television-based system. There are rules and procedures that have to be followed even by those litigants. What I'd like to see is the law school expand their program to be able to give procedural lessons to pro se litigants who come in, give them an idea of what's to be expected in those hearings. They come in and the towering judge sits high, elevated on the bench, and that's kind of imposing to pro se litigants. They already have their families being harmed and pulled apart in this system, and they come in aggravated and upset.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Ms. Kimble-Simms, please, same question. And I don't mean to be rude to any of you, so don't take it that way.
Several years ago, the Foster Care and Adoption Association, we held conferences at UNLV Law School, and along with the, I guess it's Clark County Legal Services, but there's another legal service as well. They provide classes and manuals, and every Saturday we would have the manuals for whatever was needed. Now the legal service now Clark County Legal Services requires that if you want their help, you have to go do a class. If you can't force someone to go to a class to learn how to do the system, but you can encourage them to do it, and that would be something that I would like to do. I know they have a CAP program that helps foster care. They need a CAP program to help families who are pro se litigants. Maybe we can get money through access to justice to provide a better service to these individuals.
Perfect timing. Ms. Mercer, your same question, please.
I would love to expand the mediation program. What I have been thinking was, rather than having more judges adjudicating cases, I would like to see the full-time employment of some settlement judges and incorporate that in the rules. So there is a mediation program to help the litigants resolve child custody matters, but I would like to see settlement judges at the very beginning of a case to help conserve the financial resources of the parties, the litigants. I like to tell my clients, you can put your kids to college or you can put my kids to college. It's your choice. But at the very beginning of the case, if they can just sit down together, get very real, and talk about how can we resolve these issues, I think a full-time settlement judge where the parties can go there immediately at the front end of a case would be beneficial. And it would conserve the judicial resources as well. Councilman, I'm sorry, I must have misunderstood. I thought we had a minute and a half to answer questions.
Candidates are allowed 1 minute to answer.
To answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Candidates are allowed a minute and a half to introduce themselves.
Very good, okay, thank you. Thank you. No, I misunderstood.
All great answers. You're all seem like wonderful candidates, so this is a great discussion or great question and answer. So, Mr. Lamb, you have the next question.
Candidates, we've all talked about some administrative issues, some scheduling, etc., caseloads. This is Veterans in Politics, and I want to ask each of you a question. If you're elected to the bench, I want you to give me your insight on what kind of veteran litigants you're going to see and what kind of problems you're going to have to deal with. And I'm looking for some specific things here and how you would adjudicate those matters, which way you would lean. Please.
Okay, perfect timing. Mr. Lamb, let's start with you. Ms. Mercer on that end.
Good. I think a main issue that comes up with military parties or veteran parties is the fact that there may be orders coming where they have to move, and so then we have the problem about custody. If they're getting a divorce, we have one parent staying here, another parent being relocated, and then considering the best interest of the child sometimes can run in conflict with the parent, maybe the veteran parent, if they're still actively serving in the military, they have to relocate. Trying to discern what's going to happen with those children in those scenarios, but also I think that it's beneficial that there is the specialty court, the veterans specialty court, to help get through some of the issues that are not only, but primarily that address issues of the veterans. I grew up in the military, by the way. My parents were both.
Thank you, Ms. Mercer. It is so challenging. I'm with you because I've sat in those chairs before in front of this panel before, so I get it.
You did a fabulous job.
Yes, you guys are doing great. So, and again, nothing personal. If I cut you off, you can meet me up in the parking lot later. Ms. Kimble-Simms, same question for you, please.
I do believe there should be some special consideration for veterans. I can speak from experience. My brother and his wife got a divorce. He had to go to Okinawa. The judge did not feel comfortable letting my niece go to Okinawa, so he awarded me custody. I had to go to Georgia, pick up my niece, and bring her back home. She was away from her mother and her father. I don't believe that that served the interests of my niece. When my brother left, she didn't know me. When he came back, she didn't know him. She didn't know his mother. But to me, that was not fair at all. I think that they should be allowed to have custody of their children and take their children where they like to go. The other issue that my brother came back an alcoholic, and there were a lot of different issues that he and his wife had to go through, and he was not fit to go to family court. I would petition my congressperson to at least have maybe a social worker in family court that could explain to the judge, well, whatever happened in
Thank
the
you,
military, he's not fit right now to sit in family
Thank you,
court.
Mr. Hughes. Same question to you, sir.
These are the common issues that are there, but I've also dealt with recently several cases of veterans benefits or disability benefits from members who have served and been injured, and figuring out how to deal with those in a marriage. You know, the disability payment or that is a separate property of the individual that received it, the veteran. In a situation though where that marriage is 24 years old and that's really the main source of income, how does that get used or calculated or determined in support for the children, in support for the spouse, as well as maintaining the care necessary for the veteran who needs those funds to maintain medical treatment and everything else. And it gets very complicated to deal with those issues always.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Mr. Howard, same question.
I would agree to have a specialty court. Returning vets have a higher rate of divorce, a higher rate of domestic violence, a higher rate of alcohol and drug abuse. People who say PTSD is invented obviously have never served in the military or known other people who have. It's epidemic at times. Judges need to be sensitive that veterans may have different issues and they need to be processed differently. And it's not just the vets, it's their families. If people have lost a loved one or the loved one has been gone for extended times, it's not just the vet, it's the extended family. And judges need to be sensitive and aware of that.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much. And Ms. Burton, your turn.
Often, war ends up in unit combat, military ends up with veterans suffering from various disabilities, various medical problems, health-related problems that might make them at risk to their children. So as a judge, I would be interested in knowing whether these individuals are participating in veterans court and whether they're getting help for those sorts of things. Because again, family court is mostly, with regard anyway to custody issues, have to do with the best interests of the children, keeping both parents fit and healthy. But you also have, veterans also have, there's relocation issues. There is the fact that the military member might be away, be deployed for long periods of time, and then they come back. How does that impact their family? And that we protect the military members' right to custody of their children, and sensitive to that. There's also the very complex matters of military pensions. And
thank you, Ms. Burton. Ms. Burton, Mr. Melendez, 30-second question, please.
Thank you. I'm going to kind of go back to what candidate Hughes was talking about, and it can be a yes/no question, or if you want to provide a narrative answer, go ahead. And I guess my question is, should those disability benefits be calculated for spousal support in your courtroom?
Good question. Is that a question to everyone?
It's general.
Everyone. Ms. Burton, we'll start with you on this end.
The United States Supreme Court has said yes. With regard anyway to child support specifically, that case, Rolls versus Rolls, has been in place for about 27 years. There have been numerous cases across the United States with regard to in federal courts about spousal support, and they're following the same lines. What it is a veteran's disability benefit. It's for the family, it's for the veteran, it's also for their family, and so it can't be ignored when we're looking at areas of child support, the issues of child support and spousal support. But we also look at the overall equities of the situation. There's a number of factors that come into place with child support and spousal support. Child support is much more cut and dry because that has to do with some pretty specific guidelines here in the state of Nevada and other states as well. But spousal support, there's a number of factors by statute and where we can look at and evaluate those to come up with equity for the whole family.
Thank you very much. Mr. Howard.
Complex question, I would agree with Rebecca in part. What we know in Nevada is personal injury recoveries, unlike California, the pain and suffering is not community property, it's separate property. So to the extent that the disability is to compensate the veteran for the pain and suffering due to the disability, I would somewhat say that would be more akin to separate property than community property. That being stated, the rights of the child or children are paramount. I would think on the spousal alimony, I think the judge can use judicial discretion.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Hughes?
Thank you. Like I say, if it's an extended marriage, and this is the only income that's there to be divided, which I've never seen, but if it were the only income, it would be used and divided for spousal support. Normally, it's one aspect of the family's income, and it does have to be considered. I would be hesitant to take away benefits from the veteran. Normally because those are given for medical needs, for just the family. And those factors also have to be considered. If we were to do the balance test, you definitely don't want to take away the veteran's care in order to prevent harm to the veteran more than anything else. But it does have to be considered along with the factors mentioned by both Mr. Howard and Ms. Burton.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kimble-Simms?
I agree with my colleagues. The only issue that regarding veterans benefits that in reference to, I just speak from personal experience and having to deal with that type of situation. In my brother's case, the veterans benefit was basically awarded to him because his wife was financially capable of taking care of herself. But if not, that wife who has stood by that man's side and cared for him and helped him should have some award. But I would require that if she's an able-bodied person, that within 6 months' time, she come back to me and show me that she's willing and ready and she's tried to find a job so that he does not have to continue to support her for spousal support.
Perfect timing, thank you. And Ms. Mercer, please.
Mr. Melendez, I have to follow the law as a judge, but I recognize that often the law is very rigid and it leads to unfair, inequitable results. The beauty of family court is the judge has the ability to consider equity as well. If you had a veteran who had his disability income that he is relying on, and then you have an ex-spouse who's gone on and she's earning a very handsome salary and is very capable of earning good living on her own, it would be inequitable to divide the veteran's salary. In those circumstances, I would hope that I would be able to look at the facts, circumstances, and the law in that situation and try to come up with a more equitable result. But at times, though, sometimes you just have to follow the law.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mercer. Our last question through this session will be by Mr. Blanchard. Mr. Blanchard, close-up question for our candidates, please.
First of all, I want to thank you all for running. It's not easy to run, having been there. And I also wanted to have this question sort of wrap up and guide you into what we're going to make some closing statements. What quality do you think each one of you pose that sets you apart from your other candidates?
Fabulous question, Mr. Blanchard. Thank you very much. Ms. Burton, let's start with you.
One,
Yeah, just one.
certified family law specialist, gives me in-depth knowledge of family court, or family law.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
I treasure my children. I've been through a divorce. I know how emotionally and financially painful it can be. The judge has to have experience, empathy, and sympathy.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes.
I believe I have the experience from sitting on the bench, from working with family law clients, I have the temperament to be able to sit there and make the correct decisions without seeing the parties as fighting preschoolers, which is often how they tend to act when they come in against the advice of counsel or however else, to sift through it and get to the facts that will help determine and make a decision.
Thank you. Ms. Kimble-Simms.
My ability to empathize with all parties involved. My philosophy is families are forever. The couples were in love when they got together, and now they want to scratch each other's eyes out. And so both parties, as far as I'm concerned, are equal. It's in the best interest of the child to keep both parties as actively involved in the children's lives. And since I believe that families are forever, that's what makes me stand out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mercer.
My passion for serving the public and my life experiences, I think, set me apart. I didn't directly go to law school. I've had many different careers because I'm a student of life. I love studying, I love learning, I love people, I love serving, I love helping, I love teaching. All of those qualities have led me to run for family court judge. And I'm abundantly aware as the judge, I'm a public servant. It's the people that have the power. They are my employers. You employ me, you pay my salary, and I am aware of that every single day. When I sit on the bench, it is not about me. It is about the families, it's about the children, it's about resolving conflict. And I'm very, very passionate about giving my best, giving my all, and doing that.
Thank you to all of you as candidates, and please take it from me, who has sat in those chairs before in front of a panel similar to this. It is not easy. And Ms. Mercer, serving the public in all of your eyes and in your minds is a very difficult job in whatever capacity that you serve in this public. So give them a round of applause for it. Thank you.